What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today I'm going to give you a little bit about my background. You know, yesterday I announced for president of IBEW Local Union number 26, and I realized that there are a lot of folks that are unfamiliar with who I am. You may have heard my name, or you may have heard stories about me, or you may have formed an opinion because of content you've come across that you didn't agree with, and so you may have an opinion about me, but you might not know anything about me. And so I want to give you a little bit of background just to give you some perspective and content into who I am as a person. I grew up in Miami, Florida, North Miami Beach to be precise. I was born in Miami, Florida. I was raised in the 80s and 90s. And so, you know, in Miami, if you look at documentaries like Cocaine Cowboys, you'll know that in the 80s, cocaine exploded in Miami, drugs exploded in Miami, and corruption exploded in Miami, and the influence of that explosion hit everybody. Okay, my mom and dad split when I was 4, just before I began elementary school, or maybe when I was 5. It was during the very early years of my schooling, and when they split, I stayed with my mom. She kept the house. My dad left, and he agreed to pay child support. My mom went and worked as a custodian at an elementary school in a different neighborhood, and that's kind of like the formative beginning, right? Grade school. That's when you're really starting to understand society and you're starting to be socialized. My dad's departure from our family was very impactful, and it affected all of us in different ways. My brother, I think, took it the hardest, but this is me being a couch therapist. I don't know for sure, but I think he took it the hardest. And he became pretty angry, and his anger, unfortunately, was directed at me and my sister. And so at home, there was an abusive relationship there, right? And my mom would try as much as she could, but she had to work. And so since my mother had to work, my brother had to take care of us. And this is a 10-year-old taking care of a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, or 11, 7, and 5. You know what I'm saying? The age gaps. And so it's a lot to ask of a young kid, but my mom was working as a custodian. There's not a lot of money in custodial work. And so how was she supposed to afford any other type of arrangement? And so we made do with what we had. But like I said, it was a turbulent childhood. And in grade school, I went to a Title I school. If you know what that is, it's a low-income neighborhood school. And in 2nd grade, I got tested and accepted into the gifted program. Now, the gifted program back then, you had to be bused to a separate school where the gifted program was 2 days a week. And so I would go either on Monday and Thursday one year, or Tuesday and Friday another year. And so I had 2 different elementary schools that I went to and got to see. Now, the one elementary school was in a nicer neighborhood, so the elementary school was nicer. My elementary school was in a poorer neighborhood, and so it was a little bit harder to get through. Supplies weren't always available, and you're dealing with problems, you know what I mean? And I was undersized, and so I was getting picked on at home, right? And then at school, since I was undersized, the bigger kids would try to pick on me. And so I was constantly fighting somebody bigger than me. And I think that kind of had something to do with why I'm constantly fighting giants. I think it has to do with that childhood, that bringing up where it's like you're constantly having to defend yourself. You're the little guy and you constantly have to defend yourself against the big guy. As I grew up and went through middle school and graduated high school, I went into the workforce. And the reason I went into the workforce is because I knew, 1, I didn't want to go to college. I didn't think that was for me. 2, I wasn't going to go to the military because my attitude just was not amenable to being a soldier. It didn't seem like something I could tolerate going through. And so I didn't do that. And I knew the workforce. But the workforce, it was, good luck, champ. You graduated high school, go find a job. At the time, I didn't know anything about unions. I didn't know anything about labor. All I knew was the streets, because we were poor. Hello, we grew up trying to be in the streets because we saw in the streets the drug dealers had the nice cars. The gangsters had the nice stuff. And yeah, their house got raided by the police every so often, but they seemed to always get back out and back on their feet. That's what we looked at as kids. And so we knew that was an avenue to get something nice for ourselves. And then there was get a job. So you knew the streets, you knew you had to get a job. So I found a job as a security guard working for Kent Security. And I worked in a nice condo complex. And so again, you start to see affluence versus your poverty. Fast forward a couple years, and on one of my jobs, they went under a renovation. And when they went under that renovation, the company that got hired was a union contractor called Phase Masters Electric. The foreman was a guy named Sergio Mayer. And one day he came to the guard shack where I worked, and he was like, "Hey boy, what are you going to do with the rest of your life?" And I didn't have a good answer for him. My answer was, I guess maybe I'll go to college. But he was like, "You have a problem working with your hands?" I said, "Nah, I'll go wherever the money's at." So he showed me his paycheck stub. And when he did, I said, "Man, that's wow. Is that every 2 weeks?" Because my mother got paid every 2 weeks. As a security guard, I got paid every 2 weeks. So I was used to getting paid every 2 weeks. And he said, "No, man, that's every week." I was like, wow. And the next thing I said was, "Sign me up. Where do I have to go? What do I have to do? How do I get to that level? Like, how do I get there?" Because I knew as a security guard, I wasn't getting raises. I was stuck at $6.50 an hour. I wasn't getting any raises. There was no, my boss barely made $1 more than I did. So there was no growth there. So it was an opportunity to get a better job, but that's all I knew about it. It was Sergio's mentorship and the group of journeymen that I worked with around there that formed my core union attitude. They taught me about organizing. They taught me about brotherhood. They taught me about standing up for each other. They taught me about standing up for what's right. They taught me about being loyal to the union and not the contractor, because you're just there for a job and you're just a number. They taught me that no matter how much sucking up you do, your work is the only thing that people really remember about you. I remember Sergio used to tell me, he'd be like, "Yeah, you could be the funniest guy, you could be the loveliest guy, but the minute you screw something up, you'll be the terminated guy. They're not going to remember you then. They're going to remember you screwed it up." And it stuck with me, and I've kind of like used that as I move forward in my trajectory in life. But it was very vital that I fell in with them, because they taught me old school brotherhood and unionism, and that's what formed my core activism. Now, I didn't finish apprenticeship in Miami, Florida. I just got started there. I was a third year when I moved to New York. And that's a whole different story. I'll talk to you about that in another video. But I wanted to give you some of my background so you kind of know how I came up and why I do what I do. It was coming up in poverty and seeing the difference, the two different worlds. It was coming up being picked on by bigger problems and always forming that opinion that I got to fight back against these bullies and people that are just not very nice people. And so we fight back. And then it was Sergio's mentorship that really taught me IBEW brotherhood, and what lit the fire in me to want to be an IBEW electrician and a unionist, because man, this is cool. This is like a family apart from a family. Like, this is amazing. And so that's how I move. That's where I come from. That's where my IBEW journey began. And I hope you learned something about me as far as where I'm from and why I do what I do. And I'll get into some more about my background so that you can fully understand why I do what I do and why I press so hard, even though I've been doing it from the outside for so many years. And I know a lot of you folks who have known me for a long time know that I have always pushed from the outside, and will continue to do so. And so thanks for stopping by. My name is Eric. You're watching Union Minded. Remember that the fight's not left and right. It's up and down. It's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. And remember, there could be no union without you and I front and center. So let's go. Peace.